Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Rita. I hope you all are doing well. Today, we are going to talk about this headline. Confidential Pfizer document shows the company observed 1.6 million adverse events covering nearly every organ system. We're going to dig into this article today. We're going to go through some points, and then we're going to talk about why the FDA is still pushing these things. Okay, let's jump into it. Over 10,000 categories of nearly 1.6 million adverse events, many of them serious and debilitating, brought to you by Pfizer. You might not have heard this in the news. This article just came out yesterday, actually. But in recent months, Pfizer's pharmacovigilance documents requested by the European Union's drug regulator, the European Medicines Agency, have been released. They show that Pfizer knew about a sickening level of injury early on. An August 2022 document shows that the company already had observed the following scope of vaccine injury. You ready for this? Are y'all ready for this? Hold on to your seats. 508,351 individual case reports of adverse events containing 1,597,673 events. Now, before we go on, let's talk about those are reported. Reported. Think of people that you may know, or people that you know who have heard of people who have had problems. I have experienced this with people I know close to me who have had adverse events that have not been reported, and people that they know who have had adverse events that have not been reported. Just saying, so these numbers, you may as well multiply them. 1/3 of the events were classified as serious, well above the standard for safety signals usually pegged at 15%. Women reported events at 3 times the rate of men. 60% of cases were reported with either outcome unknown or not recovered. So many of the injuries were not transient. Highest number of cases occurred in the 31 to 50-year age group. You want to know why there's so many hiring signs out? There's your workforce right there. And there's a book, this book, before I go on. It's called Cause Unknown. I know it looks a little sensational, but this book was written by Edward Dowd. He used to work on Wall Street for many years. He stepped away from doing his work, kind of like risk management. And so he stepped away because what he was seeing in the actuary reports, meaning the insurance agencies, what he was seeing was off the charts payouts. And a lot of actuaries and insurance companies were seeing this. So they started to research, and that's what this book is talking about. Now, if you are a maths person and you like statistics, this is for you. The whole idea of it is just to understand the scope of what is going on, specifically with young people is what this book talks about. Let's go on. 92% did not have any comorbidities. So 92% of the 31 to 50 where the highest number of cases of adverse events had no comorbidities, which makes it very likely that it was related to the poke. These numbers alone suggest that all shots should be defunded and Congress must immediately remove liability protections from the manufacturers. But a more recent document released by the Europeans is even more devastating because it breaks down the 1.6 million adverse events observed by Pfizer by category and subcategory of ailment and injury. The 393-page confidential Pfizer document dated August 19, 2022 shows that Pfizer observed over 10,000 categories of diagnosis, many of them very severe and very rare. For example, Pfizer was aware of 73,542 cases of 264 categories of vascular disorders from the shots. Many of them are rare conditions. There were hundreds of categories of nervous system disorders, totaling 696,508 cases. There were 61,518 events from well over 100 categories of eye disorders, which is unusual for a vaccine injury. I actually know somebody who has this problem with the eyes, and they even know 5-6 other people who have had the same problems in a certain age group. Let me continue. Likewise, there were over 47,000 ear disorders, including almost 16,000 cases of tinnitus, which even Mayo Clinic researchers observed as a common but often devastating effect early on. There were roughly 225,000 cases of skin and tissue disorders, roughly 190,000 cases of respiratory disorders. Disturbingly, there were over 178,000 cases of reproductive or breast disorders, including disorders you wouldn't expect, such as 506 cases of ED in men.
Minaj told her 22 million followers that her cousin's friend got the vaccine and became impotent after his reproductive organs swelled up.
Very disturbingly, there were over 77,000 psychiatric disorders observed following the shots. Lending credence to Dr. McCullough's research, observing case studies showing psychosis correlating with vaccination. So, I guess we should expect to see more of all of the crazy that we're seeing in the streets. Okay. 3,711 cases of tumors, benign and malignant. Of course, there were almost 127,000 cardiac disorders, running the gamut of about 270 categories of heart damage, including many rare disorders in addition to myocarditis. There were over 100,000 blood and lymphatic disorders, for both of which there's a wealth of literature linking them to the spike protein. I will link this article that I'm reading below, and you can click on this document. I would recommend downloading these documents and looking at these documents if you're interested before they are gone. Okay, this article came out yesterday, but I have discovered that once something has been made public, all of a sudden the page, you get a 404, right? Page cannot be found type situation when you try to visit these websites. So I would recommend going there and downloading them if you're interested in looking over some of these numbers. So what is so jarring, the article continues on, is that there are hundreds of very rare neurological disorders that reflect something so systemically wrong with the shots, a reality that was clearly of no concern to the manufacturers and regulators alike. Remember, these are all cases that had been determined before these things were even released. One of the infamous cases of an injury was a young teen in Ohio who became permanently disabled after participating in the Pfizer clinical trial. The broad scope of injuries affecting every single organ system is simply extraordinary, yet to this day, the FDA continues to tell us that it is safe and effective. All right. So, unfortunately, the FDA is denying any causal relationship, obviously, between these shots and any side effects, neurological or otherwise, that people are experiencing. The article goes on to say, hopefully, Republicans will have the good sense to do something about it in the Appropriations Committee, because right now, the only people who have even really talked about it, I think it has been hopefully, they'll get on the ball. There were a lot of doctors who were speaking out about the things that they were seeing, pathologists and others who were being completely having their accounts shut down for misinformation and disinformation because they were trying to warn people that these are the things that they were starting to see in their patients. Okay, there were doctors in all different fields speaking out.
This freaking vaccine's working. Why are we testing everybody still? If you're vaccinated, why do we have to test you for COVID? Because you could still get it. Wow. I can tell you right now, it's a pretty good hypothesis that the vaccine is why this is keeping this around. People were dying. Yeah, people were dying that would have died from the flu. Let's be real. People were dying that were obese. People that were dying have diabetes. People who are dying are sick in general. They're not just dying because they're healthy. Come on. Kids, however, now are dying because they're getting the vaccine and they're developing inflammation so horrific around their heart that they're dying of heart attacks.
This has been going on for a while. Unfortunately, you really had to dig. At the very beginning of this thing, I was looking at research from other countries to see what they were seeing and scraping around in Telegram and all these other sites that are supposed to be, for the tinfoil hat people. And I was seeing all this information when these shots first hit the market. I was sending them to everybody I knew, hoping, but it's hard. I understand. I get that when people hear conspiracy theory or when something seems so fantastical like this, it really is hard to believe. This is eugenics. This is trying to off as many people, as many of the population worldwide as you can, for a sustainable future.
In this year's annual letter, Melinda and I take the toughest questions we get asked and give our answers. One that's come up for a long time is, as we make the world healthier, is the population going to get so big that feeding everybody and maintaining the environment is going to be impossible?
You had all of these doctors who are currently practicing, trying to warn people what they were seeing in their patients. And people were laughing, saying it was misinformation, saying it was a joke. I remember a girl, this was one of the first videos I saw in Telegram. If you're on Telegram, there's a group on Telegram called Vaccine Injuries. Dating all the way back to when they first started mandating these shots, there was a girl in California who had serious, what looked like, you could tell it was a neurological problem.
I'm gonna try to get this so that it's sitting. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for a couple people to get on, or someone to get on, I guess. So I'm gonna start. First of all, I want to thank everybody who watched the video earlier and has reached out to me to see how I'm doing. Don't know what's wrong with me. I have not been diagnosed with Tourette's. I have not been diagnosed with anything except my lithium levels being low.
Our government decided it would be a great idea to give full immunity to Pfizer, Moderna, all the AstraZeneca, all these companies that were offering these vaccines. So that means that if anything happens, they can't be sued. Now, maybe your work can be sued for mandating it. There was a case in Illinois where some people won a lawsuit because their work, I think it was a hospital, mandated these things, and they won. So you might have a case there, but you cannot sue Pfizer and you cannot sue Moderna. So what can we say? We know this is happening. We know that there is a concerted effort. People might think it sounds crazy, and yeah, it does sound crazy, but it's the reality. The reality is they are trying to put these mRNA things, this mRNA technology in everything. They're trying to put it in our food. That's another video. It sounds terrible, but at this point, if they would go through such lengths to get people to take this shot knowing the dangers, then you already know. It's a shame because I don't even trust going to the doctor now. I don't know about you, but I don't trust any of it. I know there might be some good ones out there. I'm sure there are, but this has really opened my eyes, and I'm sure a lot of your eyes, to the fact that you really just have to be prayerful about these things, and you have to be discerning. Maybe you know people who have had an adverse effect from these things. I certainly do. And I think, yes, we could all sit around and say, those of us who were side-eyeing this from the get-go and didn't jump on board and didn't get it. Yeah, it's easy for us to look at everybody and say, like I've seen people in comments say, oh, that's what you get, or we try to tell you, I told you so, and all this stuff. And yeah, that's all fine and good, except probably we shouldn't do that, because right now these people are suffering adverse events and there's nothing that they can really do about it. They can try to sue. All they can do is try to take more medications from the pharmaceutical companies. This is where we are. So I think we have to show some grace. And for those of us who have a voice and who are not afraid to stand up and speak out about this stuff, I think that we should be doing that. So I understand that everybody's not like that. Some people are really afraid of what other people think. Some people are really afraid of what might happen, acceptance, their jobs even. And I totally get it. But at the end of the day, you have got to stand on your convictions. That's all you have. Stand on your convictions. Stand on what God says, what the word of God says. Be in prayer. And yeah, That's what we can do, and speak out. All right, guys. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Ciao. God bless. God bless.